All right, we ready to start? Everybody looks excited. And for folks on the corners, there's a front row that is just asking for people to sit in it. No? I'm not going to call on you with any questions. So thank you, everyone, for coming to our session. On behalf of Petco, myself, Brenton, and Jake will be presenting as well today. We're excited to talk about how we transform our business, powered by Snowflake and AWS. I'm Rebecca Maffei. I'm Vice President of Data and Analytics. I also have responsibility, besides our cloud-based data warehouse and reporting, also our marketing systems and our vet systems. So Petco, how many pet parents are out there? All right. Well, we hope you all go to Petco. If not before, after today. So we are a pet retailer. We have 1,500 locations within the US. We have partnerships in Canada and Mexico as well. We are headquartered in not so sunny today, San Diego, but generally sunny. I hear it's getting an inch of rain, which means San Diego shuts down. So we'll see how it goes today in the office. Our vision is healthier pets, happier people, and a better world. We are obsessed about providing complete care for your amazing pets and you as pet parents. Come on, guys. Welcome. All right, so we want to talk about our amazing transformation today, and I'll do half of the presentation, and then I'm going to hand it over, and clock hasn't started yet, so I guess you want me to talk longer. Hand it over to Jake and Brenton as we continue. All right, so let's talk about our agenda today. So this half of the presentation is really focused on our next-gen analytics at Petco, what that means to us, and how we transformed. We'll talk about our previous data warehouse architecture. I know there's been a lot of questions out there to the teams so far. We'll talk about our next-gen architecture, our business benefits, and our business value unlocked. We all know technology is great and we love it, but if it doesn't create business value and it's not an unlock for our companies, what good is technology and what good is data if you can't harness it? All right, next-gen analytics at Petco. So we realized to stay in the game and to up our game, we needed to increase our maturity in analytics. So as we took a step back and worked with our business teams from a strategic perspective, we said, what is going to drive modern analytics? We knew we had to get into the game. We knew machine learning, and this was a couple years ago, and AI, and some of the advanced things we need to do to become more predictive in our business. So we looked at the cloud and how we were going to enable, number one, data-driven decisions. As I mentioned, we were very heavy on being very descriptive, lots of reports, lots of numbers. And what do you do with those numbers? And we ask our business teams every Monday morning, tell me about your business, especially our store managers. And they would say, well, I have a number. And we said, well, what does that number mean? What are you going to do with it? And it was, well, I have a number. You haven't provided me a lot of tools to go deeper. So right there, we knew we had to do something. Personalized solutions. You're all here at the AWS conference. I am sure you've been talking about personalization, something Amazon does well. We know if any of you have puppies that your recommendations and your choices as a puppy parent is very different than a mature dog or a senior dog. So we need to help you with that. Being a parent of a puppy is not always fun. That's why they're so cute. So we have to work really hard on how to best enable you as pet parents with your different stages of your pets, and that includes cats and exotic animals as well. Self-service through democratized data. Data's great, like I said, and it's great sitting in our data lakes and sitting in our data warehouses, but if you can't do anything with it, and it's not organized and it's not accessible, it's not worth anything. So you can have the greatest technology in the world, and still you're not meeting your business requirements and helping your business succeed. And then governed data. We know how important it is to have timely, accurate, and quality data that your teams, your business partners, your employees, your customers can count on. All right, so once we realized that we had a new strategy for modern analytics, we looked at our current infrastructure, and we'll talk mainly today about the data warehouse platform, and then Jake and Brenton will talk a little bit more about some of the other offerings that we have. So our previous architecture, we were on, I'll read you a couple statistics. We were previously on Netezza. We had the Netezza twin fin. It was between 8 and 10 years, hardware, software years old. IBM was doing an end of life this past June for our TwinFin. So right there was another driver, not only of our business requirements, but how do we get into the new architecture before it's unsupported. We had more than 1,000 stored procedures. I know there was some stored procedures questions out there. SQL stored, written in SQL. 700 Unix shell scripts, 30 terabytes of compressed data. We had 1,500 business users using the system, and our reporting tool is MicroStrategy, and we had, it took about 6+ hours to do our processing. Monday mornings are the heaviest for us. It's when we collect a lot of the data, talk about what happened last week, talk about what's coming to be more predictive in the week. All of our analysts on Monday mornings are also running queries, so it's a very busy time, and you just heard the statistic. So let's talk about what some of the bottlenecks were. Business demands are increasing. We all know we're all here. It's data. Data's the new gold, right? So as business demands increase, we knew that we had to have an architecture that would really support our business users and our strategy. Fast approaching end of life, we talked about that for the TwinFin. Increased demand Monday mornings. Interesting story, we would have our business analysts and data scientists running some things on Monday morning. Well, we only had so much capacity and compute. We would run our required reports for our executive team and would have lots of analysts come to us and say, hey, can you look at my queries? They're just not returning data. Well, little did they know we actually were killing their queries because they were constraining the system. So little known fact, they thought they were horrible programmers until we unveiled that you're not horrible programmers, you're great. It's just we don't have the capacity, so you have to run it at a different time. Horrible story to be telling people that are really trying to analyze our data. We talked about compute requirements, growing operational costs for an actual appliance, the Netezza appliance itself, and slow response and no response, which is the subject I just talked about. I don't want to go backward. All right, next-gen architecture. So we took a look. So now that we knew our business strategy and what we wanted to do to mature in our analytics space and our cloud-based technology, we picked the architecture from a Python-based ETL process. You see Python, you see S3 up there, Lambda to run our backend code for orchestration, EC2 instances when we need them, and then Snowflake. So as we looked at the different data warehouse offerings out there, Snowflake really caught our attention in the ability to really run operational and analytics and the whole storage and compute separation. And I'll go into the journey in a minute, but this is where we ended up from a tech stack and architecture layer. We know that AWS resources can be scaled, which was huge for us because of the Monday morning. We want to make sure everybody gets their reports and everybody gets their queries run, so we're all trying to do the right thing for the company. Standard data engineering for inbound and outbound. Snowflake clusters, again, scale per the workload. What's interesting, and a lot of you probably know this, you can scale your data warehouse size up and down as you need it. So if you have high demand and you need something to come out in 5 minutes versus 30 minutes, you have that power to scale that, and you have that internal power. And it's really, I'll call it easy for the team, since I don't actually do it. Easy for the team, though, to scale up and to change those requirements. And it's interesting because sometimes you get to, should it run in 5 minutes? What if it runs in 7? So you do have to really watch your usage of the system to make sure that, that 2 minutes, is it worth costing X more money? Or do you tell somebody, hey, go get coffee and take an extra 2 minutes, or walk your dog, and when you come back, your report will be there. All right, so again, our data is loaded into Snowflake after our ETL on AWS. We also do some ELT within Snowflake. The Snowflake data is consumed by the teams, provides elasticity and isolation of the different workloads, which we talked about. And we can combine operational and analytic requirements into one platform. Seems pretty simple. Let's talk about how we got there. So as we embarked on this journey and said, great, we have our strategy, we have a new architecture, we knew the problems with our old architecture. As we brought this in, we had, with 1,000+ stored procedures, we knew it was going to be a lot of work. So the first thing we looked at, every morning would come in with Netezza and cross our fingers that today wasn't going to be the day that she decides she's going to the graveyard. So one thing we knew, we had to get that traffic off very quickly. So within the first 2 months of the project, we spun up our Snowflake clusters and we forked all of our data from Netezza into Snowflake. So we ran both systems, and what we did is we took all of our users and our ad hoc MicroStrategy reporting and users, we moved them into the Snowflake environment immediately. So within 2 months, we had a tremendous value for the 1,000 or so folks that I mentioned, the 1,500 business users that were running. So they were happy. The comments we got back were, wow, my data returns. I actually get data returned from my queries. I guess I wasn't such a bad developer after all. So just, that says it all when they can actually get their data back. So as we looked at that first 2 months and we moved some of the ad hoc workloads off into Snowflake, the immediate value was there. And the rest of the core processing, all of our core reporting and analytics, we're still running off Netezza. So then it took us about 10 months to retire Netezza. The next 8 months, really we focused on converting the stored procedures. So we wrapped the SQL in Python. It was, as I was mentioning to another gentleman, it's work. So the work was to recode that. The work wasn't how do we get Snowflake up and running. It was that's how we were driven to bring in our data. We take in 30,000 files. We process them. We do a lot of manipulation is not the right word, a lot of the curation of data and those pieces. So just a lot of work. And as the time went on, we had no downtime in our business for those 10 months. The team they worked at it. It was amazing. A lot of times, though, there was frustration and how are we going to get this done? This deadline is looming. We want to be off it. And I'd call Snowflake and, in Snowflake team, what can I do for you? I said, nothing. It's not you guys. There's nothing you can do for us besides encouragement, maybe a health check here and there. But we had such amazing success with Snowflake itself. It was really just the time and effort to convert those stored procedures. Also our orchestration. So how do we get the data in the right sequence from all of our inventory systems, all of our sales systems and those drivers so that our reporting would be accurate at the end of the day. Also within that, we spent a lot of time going table by table, field by field, and making sure that the data was accurate. So within our process, we ran both systems. We would run all of our daily processing in both systems. We would make sure not only from the end result of the reports would come out identical down to the penny of sales reporting and things like that, but also as we looked through and we wrote some scripts to look at every field, every table, and make sure that the characters were correct so that we had really good, accurate data. So it was a 10-month project, but again, the business value we got was very quickly. If folks out there don't have a lot of stored procedures and a lot of orchestration, we would have been up and running in the business value in 2 months and real immediate business value. Okay. All right, so we always get asked for pictures of our pets. So yes, we do have pets in the office, and actually doing some analytics. So as you can see, some of the business benefits realized. My query returns data in quickly. Monday morning issues are solved. AI and machine learning is a reality. We're doing some really cool stuff in that area with our great teams. So hopefully maybe we'll be invited back next year and be able to unveil some of the really interesting business forward things that we're working on. And we enable the goal of timely, accurate, and available data. So one thing I forgot in my intro, it was my whole lead-in joke, and I forgot because you guys were so exciting to start with. Lots of pets. People ask us all the time, do you bring your pets to work? Everybody brings their pets to work. We have lots of dogs. We have lizards. We have cats. And the best thing I learned in my 3 years at Petco is the 3-second rule doesn't apply. Don't eat anything off the floor ever. So, all right. So some additional business value. We talked about you could have the greatest architecture in the world. You could have the most data. You could have the most clean, governed data. But what does it all mean if it's not available and unlocked for the business? So some things we've recently embarked on, again, personalized recommendations, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about this week, based on the customer's profile. This goes back to what life stage are you in with your pet? What are you doing with your pet? We have service dogs, we have companion animals, we have, you name it, everybody has different needs for different things. We also, as my clean food crew shirt says, we did some campaigns to get rid of the nasties, so all artificial ingredients out of the food we sell, so better, healthier for your pets. So as we transitioned people out of the current artificials they were in to artificial free, Nutrition, that took a lot of recommendations of what were you giving your dog and why and what formulas do they like and digestion and all those great things. So how do we make recommendations to make your pet healthier? And we always say what's good for the pet is good for the pet parent is good for Petco. We also have complete care APIs. If anybody's using, anybody on the Petco mobile app out there? Okay, so here's a plug for the Petco mobile app. Go download it. Lots of pet parents out there, so we all know you need advice and recommendations and fun ideas of what to do with your pet and how to dress them up for Christmas and pictures with Santa and all that good stuff. So download the app. What we did is we created, which is actually the real-time APIs are hitting S3. We curate all the data in Snowflake, but we found that the APIs are better suited for the S3 buckets. So that's our data. So you can retrieve a lot about your shopping history, things you've done with us from a grooming, any transactions that you've done with your vet, so that in the palm of your hand, you can remember. The most common thing we get for the guest lookup is the next one. The most common questions we get in the store, somebody from the family runs in, I won't say typically who, runs in and says, I was told to come buy dog food, we're out of dog food, I need it, and I gotta run out of here. And the partner will say to them, so what's the dog food? You know, the red bag, the big red bag. And we look down the aisle, and there's 20 red bags. So what this has done in the personalized guest experience and your mobile app, you now know what you bought. So then it's an easier, yes, it's exactly this out of the 10 brands we have that are big red bags, and we're gonna run, get it for you, and you're in and out in a minute, and your family is happy when you get home, and your pet, and you're on your way. So that also, for the guest lookup, that is, all the data is in Snowflake, and we're using that data. And what that does is creates the real-time experience. So as you're in the store and you're asking for help and recommendations, we can have a more intelligent conversation with you about what's best for your pet and your pet needs. All right, and then the last one, which we'll focus on more in the next couple slides. So stores making data-driven decisions through the hub. As I mentioned, Petco was very descriptive. You knew a number. Now, what did that number mean? How do you peel back the onion? It was extremely hard for our stores and our team members to know the results and to know what to do next. So we knew we had to become more predictive, and we knew that we had to put data, more democratized data, in the hands of our employees. And also, how do we become more prescriptive, where we can actually help give advice on predicted outcomes? Leads us to the hub. So the hub is a place, it's a digital place where our associates go. We have 7,500 associates now going to this digital place where they can retrieve their reports. We're using MicroStrategy Dossier that sits on top of the Snowflake data. It's very business driven. We've had the business teams create a lot of this reporting on their own. They don't need to come to IT for it. What you do need to come to IT is when you have very complex calculations and things that we need to create cubes to make it more performant. But really, this was in the hands of the business team, and you'll see a little bit more in the video that I'm gonna play. But it's data now for the store associates and for, we call them our Petco partners, our employees, is organized, it's accessible, it's quick, and it's convenient, and it's in a digital format where they don't have stacks of reports. We do a lot of store visits out with our C-suite, and we get the store leaders and we ask lots of questions, and in the past, they probably had 4 or 5 people with different stacks of reports, and when a question was asked, they'd refer to the different stacks of reports. No more. They have a tablet. They look up the data. They're able to drill into their data. They're able to look at some real root cause problems that we've had. A partner feedback form is available as well for them to ask questions of, hey, I see my number looks like this. It looks like this trend is happening. I've dug in 3 layers deep. Have you seen this before? What can you do to help my store? What can you do to help my inventory, sales, things like that? And then we also attach an action plan. So again, as you look at being more prescriptive, how can we give advice on possible business outcomes? We're able to help that and put that in the hands of the store leaders. So this was a huge win using, again, powered by Snowflake and AWS. 7,500 folks hitting this. We're no longer worried that Monday morning, if they come in and everybody logs in at the same time and we're running all our Monday reports, that we're gonna have issues. So we did we erred on the side of probably overcapacity, and we threw a lot of capacity at it, and we said, hey, as time goes and we can trend, we'll scale it back, and we've been able to scale that back significantly with really great performance. So let's take a watch of the video, and this, again, is the business value that we've unlocked with our architecture.
Hey team, this is Justin. I'm here to talk about something really exciting and cool. So I've been with the company now a little bit shy of a year, and as I've been out in the stores talking to people, I know it's always been a struggle to be able to get the right financial or scorecard reports in front of our leaders. And it is so important. If you're running a business, we want you to be able to talk about what matters the most. Matters the most for your guest, for your business, and overall performance to become better or look for areas of opportunity. What I'm really proud to announce today is the Hub. This is a massive amount of work that's gone into this thing. We've taken roughly 56 performance reports and gotten rid of them. Ultimately, we're going to push to take care of about 150 reports and get rid of those. What this is doing is putting in the palm of your hand scorecarding and analytics to help you run your business better. So early in my days of visiting stores, I'd go out and somebody would mention something about, say, Blue Buffalo or where we're at on a champion brand. No one could answer. They'd sort of flip through their reports, and I used to joke it was like scorecard bingo. Everybody would carry these stack of reports or have images loaded onto their iPad, and they'd be flipping through everything trying to find the right number. With the Hub, this simplifies everything. It's going to allow you to understand what metrics are driving your business, what brands are driving your business, and ultimately, it's going to give you avenues to solve maybe business problems. If you're down in a certain category, you can continue to data mine and drill down into it to find out what could possibly be causing that gap. From that, as business owners, future state general managers, we want you to understand what's going to drive your business or what's going to accelerate your business based off what you're doing today. This is going to become the ultimate tool to become business experts and business leaders. So I'm super excited to see this launch out in our stores. It's going to be a tool that myself and even Ron will be using to assess and understand what's happening in the stores, the districts, or the territories. Super excited to see this come to life and really excited to see you using it.
Great, so Justin's our Senior Vice President of our stores, so really excited to get that in the hands. That was a couple months ago. You'll see some of the additional feedback. So we use Workplace, which is basically Facebook for work, so you get lots of feedback and lots of fun things on there. You can't see the image too clearly, but as we rolled out the Hub to some of the districts, their favorite thing was to create little videos and post them about the excitement. So they'd take their literally stacks of 75 reports and then push them away, and that's what she's doing in here. So just really fun and how excited, and it's, to us, it seems like a small thing. Hey, we're getting rid of some reports and we're giving you a more digital format for you to look at your data, but such a huge win for the stores, and they were so receptive and so excited. Some of the other feedback, really, and this was posted directly from our store leaders that are using it. This is a game changer. They're able to diagnose their business in the past, very difficult. My favorite one is, I love how my partners are excited each Monday. Who's excited on Monday mornings to come into work? Our partners, because they get the Hub, they get to play with dogs, they get to help healthier pets and a better world. They get smarter, more dynamic performance insight. They want to learn. So really great about, hey, how can I learn more about what's happening or exposure to a different area that I would never think about? But now that I have data that I can actually use and organize, how do we harness that? I love the Hub. So excited to see it go live. I'm so excited. All right, so lots of great things for business value, and it doesn't end there. Jake's and Brenton are gonna present some of the unlocks, again, powered by AWS, that we have in Snowflake as well from wellness. And hope we can present next year with some other cool stuff that's going on.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Jake Lindquist. I'm the general manager for the Petco Health Group. So really my team is focused around delivering and building out new digital businesses for Petco as we start to expand the role that Petco plays in the health continuum of a pet. So before I dig into a bit of what AWS and Snowflake has actually enabled in terms of some new business opportunities for us, I thought I'd maybe jump in a little bit to give you guys some context about some market dynamics that we see out there. So the first one being, essentially we see a very consistent view of pet ownership growing. So historically it's grown about 2 to 3%. Interestingly, in 2017, that was actually the first year that we actually saw the number of households that have pet overtaking the number of households with children. So again, this really kind of growing dynamic of the role that pets play in people's lives. Interestingly enough, we start to see that even more compounded when we start looking at younger generations, right? So the definition of a family with younger generations now includes pets as that first kind of graduation phase into adulthood. And so we really start to see that more and more younger generations are expecting, almost demanding, that organizations and companies really start to look at a more broad view of how pets are treated, not only in terms of work-friendly environments, but also what are those things that they can provide in terms of benefits that can potentially offset some of that growing cost that we see around pet ownership. And that's really the last stat that you see up here is that over the last couple years, we've seen the cost of veterinary care grow between 5 to 7%. Last year, it actually grew faster than human healthcare, which I didn't think was ever possible. So, which is kind of crazy when you start hearing about some of these expenditures and costs. And really, for us as an organization, going back to what Rebecca said earlier, we're really passionate about making sure that we can provide that solution for pet parents that, in that time of need, they have a trusted, authoritative voice. And one of the stats that's really alarming for us is every year about 500,000 pets are put down for something called financial euthanasia. So essentially it would be a pet parent coming into a veterinary office and the vet giving them a $1,500 bill and they say, I can't pay it. And so for us, this was one of the big things that kind of was an aha moment for us is how do we kind of take all those market dynamics around the emerging role of pets in terms of that extended family coupled with this extreme cost piece, and really kind of how do we develop a solution and what are some of those products and tools that we can deliver and enable against that, and really kind of use that underpinning of the personalization to really kind of give a curated need around that. So with that, we developed something called Petco Wellness. So essentially what this is it is a employee benefit solution around pets, right? So me as an employee, when I'm going through my open enrollment, typically we see, your medical and your dental. Now what we've done is worked with a lot of big companies where this is actually that third extension, where you can actually go and enroll your pet into a medley of things around health coverage, also taking care of some key health solutions and services. So I think a lot of what people know and recognize Petco about is that food or the dog bed, but really for us, we've built out a really extensive suite of options that are really driving a differentiated conversation for us and really elevating that Petco brand just beyond kind of the brick and mortar stores that we see. So with that, I'm going to play a quick video that highlights the user experience around the health coverage and a couple of the key pieces of functionality. So as you guys saw, it's not good enough to see again, but so again, like when I mentioned all of the care continuum, we really think about this in 4 different phases, right? So you have those coverage needs around insurance and preventive care, but also how do we start to layer in supplies and recommendations to pet parents that are not only personalized, but also kind of age and seasonal and breed appropriate, right? So again, if I'm a 9-month-old puppy owner, I don't need to have somebody talking to me about nutraceuticals, right? That are, kind of glucosamine and healthy things for joints, right? I'm more of that active lifestyle, right? So how do we take that coupled with A lot of interesting things that we as Petco own and manage that a lot of people don't know about, right? So we actually own the largest mobile vet clinic fleet in the United States. We also own the world's largest online Q&A vet telemedicine platform, a company called Petcoach. And we recently just did a partnership with a company called Wag, where we're now offering at-home services of walking and boarding through our Petco app. So again, really cool opportunity for us to take some of the things that people know about Petco, but also kind of meld them in with new and existing services that we have out there. And I think the last part is really important around that support piece, because for us, again, the puppy parenthood is like the best example, right? Like you get a dog, you get it home, and it's like a kid. You're like, now what, right? It's like, how do I start to kind of educate and validate my decisions that I'm making around this? And so what we've done is actually done some really cool stuff, not only in terms of actual content that we've created that's really specialized for a lot of those different life care needs, but also looked at things around higher end concierge services. So what we do with a lot of the companies where we work with, where we essentially give them a free health concierge. So anybody that's a pet parent, dog, cats, even rabbits, we essentially enable them to have one-on-one consultations with vet professionals or vet techs around specific care needs that they have. So for, again, really important story around how do we kind of solve that 360 view of what the pet parent needs. So when I talk a little bit about insurance, I think this is a great example of how AWS and Snowflake have really helped us kind of build something from scratch, right? So this was an idea that our team put out there about 12 months ago, as we said, hey, we want to go build a pet insurance product. We said, great, like how do we go do it? And so for us, really the big thing was about personalization, right? In the marketplace today, pet insurance is usually done by a very basic level of actuarial math where it's probably one or two variables. What we've done is taken a much deeper approach around defining some of the more specific attributes where we can get potentially to a much lower cost and better understanding of the risk exposure around those insurance pieces. So the cool part about this is the user experience itself is unbelievable, as you guys saw in that video. Essentially, it's about a 30-second process from somebody actually starting the enrollment to actually having their insurance policy processed. So super fast, super easy for the customer to go and enroll. We also created an additional product, which is almost the inverse of insurance. So this is preventive care, right? So this is essentially all the things your pet needs from an annual basis, right? So this is the things that we worked with our in-house veterinarians and really kind of built out this program of like, what are the core things that I need as a pet parent to really feel good that I'm making all of the critical care needs for my dog or cat through an annual year. And the cool thing about this is it's really enabled through our mobile platform. So again, I go to the vet office, I essentially just take a picture of my invoice. We then essentially process the claim and that person's getting their money back in their pocket within 24 hours. So super fast, super frictionless user experience. And the fun thing that we do finally is really around employee engagement. And so I think this is a really fun thing that really kind of balances the two ends of the spectrum, if you will, around how do you really build awareness and education across employers around not only the product and the platform itself, but also just around the expenses that most pet parents need to know and understand, right? So I give you back to that example of, the average vet bill now is about $400. That's a pretty big expenditure for anybody to try to handle and look at in an environment. So I think for us, our big thing is using fun things like a Yappy Hour, or if it's a walkathon that we do with an employer, but also actually have an on-site vet there, right? So we can essentially give free exams. We can also do things around pharmacy and even some stuff around that personalization and concierge model as well, where we have our own vets on staff that will go out and do webinars for specific organizations as well. So again, I think kind of bundling this all together was a really important endeavor with the technology team. And Brenton's going to dig in a little bit deeper and give you guys some more details of how this happened.
Make sure I'm turned on here. Thanks, Jake. Yep. All right. Well, thanks for sticking through this to my part of the presentation. How many of you out there are application developers? Do we have any application developers out there? Okay, good, a few. So hopefully everyone will find what I have to say interesting, but I think the application developers will probably find it slightly more interesting than data folks. But like Jake said, this is a product that we basically built from scratch, and was an idea that came, interestingly enough, even before Jake joined the team, I believe, and came to us very, very organically. Our CFO actually came to us, my small team, and said, "Hey, we want to build this wellness thing, and this is kind of what it looks like. How fast can you do it?" And we said, "Well, we can do it pretty fast if we build it on something that we already have." And so Jake mentioned our Pet Coach platform. It was built on a LAMP stack. It's been around for quite some time. It's an acquisition that we had a few years ago, and added into our ecosystem of applications. And it had pretty much all the underpinnings that we needed in order to start building something that was meaningful and we could learn from. And so we took a very MVP and sort of startup-y approach to this and said, well, let's build something quick. Let's put it out to the Petco partners internally and see if it works. Well, lo and behold, it beat our numbers by quite a bit. I think it was double or triple more than we expected the take rate to be. And so we said, well, that's great. We really need to expand this. And so then, of course, they came back to me and said, well, we're going to just expand this. I said, no, probably not a good idea, because this is built, this was an MVP, and we didn't really build this in a way that we wanted to in terms of scalability and being able to really roll out to the world. And nothing against PHP and nothing against an older MySQL database and all of those kind of things, but we really knew that it wasn't going to stand up to what we wanted to roll this out to in the real world. So we had some experience with some of the serverless technologies that AWS brings to the table, and said, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to really make this part of our full application ecosystem. So our AWS journey has been an interesting one. We'll talk a little bit more about it on the next slide, but you can see here, it's really, from a wellness perspective, it's really taking more of a traditional LAMP stack, running on EC2 instances with MySQL running first in their own EC2 instances, and then later in RDS, and then moving that all into a much more serverless focused platform. So how did we start? You can see it's pretty basic, right? It's kind of where a lot of people start, especially back 6-7 years ago with AWS, where people were at the time. You have some S3 buckets that serve up some static content, things like that from a web perspective. You've got an Nginx proxy. You've got everything basically running on EC2 instances with some elastic load balancers going. And then, as you see, like I mentioned before, we did go through a couple iterations of MySQL on EC2 instances, and then MySQL and RDS, and then we did end up on Aurora before we did this migration. And then everything running in Symfony and PHP, again, all behind elastic load balancers. So very, I don't know, 2010, 2012, whatever sort of architecture as far as AWS is concerned. Where are we now? Looks a little more complicated, but it's actually much less complicated in a sense, because we don't really have to manage any of the infrastructure that we used to have to manage. And that's because we've really leaned fully, or as fully as we possibly can, into the serverless world of AWS. So all of our business logic runs in Lambdas, and that obviously keeps us from having to deal with lots of EC2 instances and the clustering and spin up and spin down that you have to deal with that. You can see that we've got, S3 is in there as well. We've got SES. What else do we have? We're using WAF and CloudFront as our front-end cache, those kind of things to really speed things up. And then, all of this being run from a perspective of, a system of interrelated serverless services as much as we can, all orchestrated by Terraform. So we have Terraform underpinning all of this that does our spin ups and spin downs and handles all those kind of things. You can also see that we have a lot of, as we matured, as we brought in more products. Jake was talking about the insurance product that we started working on about a year ago. We have a partner there called Crum & Forster. They're actually the ones that provide the insurance, that do the underwriting for us. So we had to integrate with their APIs. We do that all through Lambdas and internet gateways. PayNuver is another one that handles all the payments, those kind of things. Obviously, as Jake said, people are coming to us and saying, "Hey, I spent this on my vet bill, and I'd like my reimbursement for it." And so we have to pay them, and that's how we handle those kind of things. So lots of integration with third-party applications, various APIs, and then you can also see that we have a connection into our what's called our DDC, which is our Dallas data center. So we still do have lots of on-prem systems, as you would imagine, for a retailer as large and old, I guess, as we are. We have lots of on-prem systems, things like OMS, which is our order management system, and the other there. We've got our e-commerce systems and things like that. And a lot of these services that we've written out in the serverless cloud have to interact back to those systems in order to complete the full journey of a purchase or reimbursement, those kind of things. So one of the questions that I think is people ask a lot is, why would you do this? I'm very biased. I'm a software engineer at heart, so I very much like to get rid of infrastructure as much as I possibly can. So that's my motivation for it in general. So that really speaks to the first bullet point. I just like to be able to write code and push it somewhere and not have to worry too much about the infrastructure that's underpinning it and having to manage it and all those kind of things. So that to me is one of the big whys for doing this. I also think it gives you the opportunity to have much smaller, more independent teams. You hear a lot about this nowadays, the microservices world, writing things smaller, isolation of concerns into smaller and smaller increments so that you don't have to have a big chunk of code that deploys all together. What I think oftentimes is lost in that, though, is that it allows the teams to move faster in terms of collaboration as well, or not having to collaborate necessarily as much, depending on how well you've written your contracts and things like that. So the idea of saying, okay, I can have one team that works on one particular thing, it can deploy that independently of other teams writing other things, and those things working together based on contracts is a very powerful model from a speed and efficiency perspective. That really is the third bullet point kind of is very similar to that. Loose coupling equals low coordination costs, right? So the less I have to know about all the other people's things that are going on, the faster I can move, and the less I have to spend in a room drawing things on a whiteboard or having detailed conversations every single time I have to do something. Minimize the blast radius. Obviously, if you've got 600,000 lines of code war that you're pushing out there, and it does everything except make coffee in the morning, you're going to have a chance of breaking a lot of things. And in the case of small lambdas that do very specific small things independently or fairly independently, you push a little bit of code, maybe a few lines of code even. You break something, it's pretty easy to figure out what went wrong, and it's pretty easy to roll it back and fix it. And that's really then leads into the last one, no big scary deploys, right? So the days of every once a month or every 2 weeks, everyone getting together on a bridge and pushing the button to say deploy and hoping to God that everything works, and then of course something going wrong, and then scrambling to figure out what went wrong before the sun comes up on the East Coast or whatever, wherever your first customers are. Those are pretty much gone. I mean, we deploy sometimes 5 or 6 times a day during the day, right? As people are transacting with the application. And we can do that because we're not concerned anymore about breaking things. Even if we do break something, which doesn't happen too often because there's a lot of automation in there in terms of testing and all those kind of things. But then the rare occasion something does break, you can pinpoint it very quickly and you can roll it back, and you probably know about it before anyone even notices. What are some lessons learned from our AWS journey to date? And really, I should have really said this is the serverless journey, right? We've been on an AWS journey for a long time, as you can see back to the EC2 days. So what are some lessons learned from our serverless journey? There's really more to serverless than just Lambda. I think a lot of people immediately think of Lambda when they hear serverless, and for good reason. I mean, it really underpins a lot of what makes serverless, of course, because it's the execution engine of your code for the most part. But the reality is there's a huge number of serverless services that AWS provides, and there's even more now after the announcements of the last couple days. So really look, across the board at the serverless framework as a whole and what AWS provides, because just writing something in Lambda but then having to send it off to an EC2 cluster to do some other thing, or having your own database sitting somewhere or whatever, that's really not fulfilling the full potential of serverless. The idea of serverless is let's write some deployment code in Terraform or code deploy or whatever whatever you want to write it in, CloudFormation, all those kind of things, and just push it out there and have all the services knitted together so that you don't have to worry about anything. That's really the end goal of serverless. What I would recommend is you're sort of putting this all together and you're to apply to a particular product. Build a reference application. We spent a couple months actually building a reference application. It was a pet finder, and it was to some it may have seemed like a waste of time, but it actually ended up really being an accelerator because it gave us a lot of learnings about how to build this, and it also then gave us the reference to take and replicate. So now we have not only this reference application that we learn from, but we have this template now that we can sort of replicate over and over and over again. And perhaps not surprisingly, there's not a lot of things that are different as you look at the different products. Certainly the business logic and the things that it does are different, but in terms of how you build something in our world of retail, if you have a reference application or 2 or 3, they probably cover 95% of the things that you're going to stand up at any given time. So having that way to bootstrap is really powerful. Start with what you know. I didn't mention this, but one of the things that we decided on early on in the building the wellness platform is we said, okay, we know Python, or a group of our team knows Python, knows Django really well, web framework for Python. And our PHP friends doing Symfony, no Symfony, so it was very easy, an easy transition for them to come to a different web platform or a web framework. And we built it and said, you know what? Yes, someday we want to get to the full AWS, well-architected idea of event-driven lambdas. But the reality is that we actually can use Lambda functions as complete containers for running a web application. So there's a framework out there called Zappa that allows you to actually package up what would be a standalone web application written in Django or Flask, and packages it up and pushes it into Lambda. And believe it or not, that's actually proven to be a very good model for us in terms of transitioning a workforce that was used to building web applications in a web framework into a serverless world, and allowed us to start pulling the pieces apart in terms of, well, let's start getting out of the web framework now, and let's actually lean more into the event-driven model of Lambdas. Rome wasn't built in a day. Don't try to start building everything in serverless necessarily. Pick a particular place where you think it makes the most sense. In this case, obviously, we had a very good use case for it because we had an MVP that was written just to prove a point and see if we could do something, and it would work. And we needed to rewrite it regardless, and so this was a really good opportunity to try and see what we could do with it. I mentioned this before, but make friends with the full AWS serverless environment. It's more than just Lambda and Amazon Gateway. You've got Aurora Serverless, which we actually did some work in, and we pulled back on it because it wasn't the right use case for us. So we still have Aurora on RDS. But there's Aurora Serverless out there. Simple networking or simple the SNS network services. Thank you. The simple queuing service S3. Your storage, DynamoDB. Step functions are a really interesting one as you get more into the event-driven model of very small, fine-grained Lambda functions using step functions to really model a workflow and orchestrate a workflow is very interesting stuff. There's a lot more too there. I just pulled a few out that I think are interesting. Automate all the things. Obviously, the more you can automate in terms of spinning up all of the different things you need to spin up in an AWS environment in a way that's repeatable so you don't have to think about it. Can't accidentally do something wrong, in a way that your friends in InfoSec and infrastructure are cool with, in terms of you're not breaking any rules, you're not letting the bad guys in, all those kind of things. They've vetted all of the ways that you're doing things, all of the things about making sure that IAM is set up properly and that you're not letting people in back doors and all those kind of things. Super important, but automate that too. Don't let governance get in the way. Work with governance to set up a system or a set of guardrails that allow you to move fast without breaking anything and without causing anyone to be concerned that you're spending too much, or that you're doing things the wrong way, or that you're letting the bad guys in. And embracing the AWS developer tools. I think this is a really important one. And we don't love all of these things, I'll be honest with you, but I do think that, especially when you're starting out, using a lot of the tools and pipelines that AWS provides or Amazon provides for you in terms of how to get things spun up quickly is really valuable, because things like CodeStar, you can really just get in there. You'll have an IDE spun up. You can sort of pick and choose the things that you want to build. It'll create a SAM document for you, and it'll spin everything up. Is that necessarily what you want to do for the rest of your life? Probably not, but I think it's a really good way to start to start and get involved in seeing how this all works together in a way that doesn't paralyze you from actually moving forward. And then after the deploy, so that's pre-deploy. After deploy, we make heavy use of CloudWatch and X-Ray. Probably not surprisingly, the more things you have out there, the more Lambda functions you have out there, the more serverless services you have out there, the more you really need to monitor and the more you really need to log, because there's a lot more moving parts. There's a lot more places where things can go bump in the night, and if you don't have a good view into all of those things, you could definitely run yourself into a blind alley. So CloudWatch and X-Ray have proven for us to be extremely valuable in terms of the monitoring and alerting and all the things that we need to do from that perspective running in production. That is all I have to say about our AWS serverless journey. I think we're about 5 minutes to go, so I don't know if there's I think we have time for a few questions. I'm sure there's some that you guys would like to answer. Rebecca, do you want to come back up here? Sure. Yeah.
What was the name of the framework, the one that packages Flask apps?
It's called Zappa. Yeah, Z-A-P-P-A. Yep. So it's pretty cool. It just takes all of the dependencies, looks at your Flask or your Django app, pulls in all the dependencies, packages it up as a zip, which is what Lambda expects, and just helps you push it right into Lambda. Yeah.
You said some of the team had some experience with Lambda and serverless to start with.
Yeah.
How did you address growing that skill set across your team as you put more and more of your workload on that?
I'm a big believer in sort of learn as you go kind of a model. So we did a lot of pair programming. We did a lot of ride-alongs. Made sure that we split the teams in a way that every squad that was building on this new set of technologies had people that were more expert at it or more comfortable in it that could help all of the people come along for the ride, so to speak. I think going forward, and certainly as we start to expand this in the organization, we definitely need to do something a little more formal, which we'll be looking into. But in small doses like this, it was a really good opportunity for people to just kind of take a mentor-mentee type of model.